Shabbat Shalom, greetings to you all. Now, I hope you enjoyed and are enjoying this incredible week of equinox, spring snow, Purim, and Easter. Yes, it's been quite the week, and many of you seem to really enjoy those change in season rituals I gave you. And I know a lot of you have begun to incorporate them into your own spiritual connections as we try to connect to the world in a new and different way these days. Now, I also had a lot of questions about the equinox and the first of Nisan as the beginning of the year. And the 12 days I said were considered in the ancient and Kabbalistic periods to be the most important of the year. And of course, there were a lot of questions about how can this be the beginning of the year when Rosh Hashanah is celebrated at the autumn equinox as the head of the year, and not this one in the spring. Well, that, my friends, is a whole other story. But to put it simply, many, many years after the return from the Second Babylonian exile, a decision was made to switch the celebration of the new year from the spring to the fall. Harvey knows about the spring to the fall. To separate the people more from the life they led in exile, because the Babylonian New Year was also the first of Nisan. So they wanted there to be a difference. Now, as to the 12 days, well, the ancients believed the world was created by what they called the lightning bolt of creation on the spring equinox. We simply call that the Big Bang. Right, so to us, the lightning bolt of creation is the Big Bang. Now, in a normalized world, the equinox makes the perfect beginning. Life is starting, it's growing, we have perfect balance between light and dark. But the lunar calendar changes that. So the 12 days begin with the first of the year, the first of Nisan. And because it usually is around the equinox, and we're at the beginning of the cycle of life, the first 12 days of the month of Nisan represent the 12 months of the year that you were forging. See, every year you begin the year with a blank slate, ready to impose your will on the blank canvas of life that sits in front of you. Each month represents an energy, and so the belief was that you would put into each of the 12 days what you wanted to accomplish in that month and the year. Aries is about beginnings, and new growth, so you would initiate something. Gemini is about communication and siblings. Leo about living life to the fullest. Virgo is healing and helping. Sagittarius is learning, and so on for all the 12 months. And since they knew the months according to what their sign in the zodiac was, that's how they thought of them. Now, even though we had the equinox the other day, you still have till the first of Nisan to think about your 12 days and how you want your year to be. And that'll be around the 8th or 9th of April that those 12 days begin. Now, having had the equinox, I hope you all had or have a great Purim. The lot casting day, celebration of a failed genocide. It's something that has been called the Jewish Halloween. Now, in honor of the holiday, and to help you all fulfill the requirement to hear the story, I hope you had a chance to listen to our reading of the Book of Esther, the whole Megillah. And of course, it is still available should you have missed it. It's a fantastic story, a story of love, of faith, of destiny. Please do take a few minutes and enjoy it, and feel free to send. I sent it out the other day, so send it out to your friends if you want. And although it should be on my webpage. And of course, this is the Easter weekend. And I said a few weeks ago we would talk a little bit about it. Part of the Twin Festivals of Freedom. It's the story of resurrection and rebirth. And its twin, Passover, is a month away this year. And that seems really odd. See, Easter is fixed as the first Sunday after the first full moon of spring. Usually, of course, in Nisan. And so there's about a month spread for from when it can fall. But since it is fixed, it technically is no longer tied to the date of Passover. It just usually falls pretty close to it. In your Easter bonnet with all the frills upon it, you'll be the grandest lady in the Easter parade. Oh, to see Fred Astaire and Judy Garland come dancing along. In fact, friends, Easter is an interesting name for a holiday of resurrection because it is never referred to that way in the scriptures. Its name comes from a pagan festival of spring, celebrating the goddess Istra, and it was not until around the 8th century that the name was adopted, and some scholars actually believe its ancient origins of rebirth and resurrection are actually tied to the Sumerian myth of Dumuzi, who was also known as the shepherd, but that is another story. Anyhow, according to some scholars, the Easter story comes from this Sumerian legend of Dumuzi and his wife Inanna, also known as Tammuz and Ishtar. And we just celebrated a holiday with Ishtar, and these are names which would be much more familiar to our biblical friends. And it comes from an epic myth that they would have been aware of called the Descent of Inanna, found inscribed on cuneiform clay tablets dating back to pre-2100 before the Common Era. It's an amazing story. When Dumuzi dies, Inanna is grief-stricken and follows him to the underworld. In the underworld, she enters through 7 gates. There's that magic biblical number of creation. And her worldly attire is removed. Naked and bowed low, she is judged, killed, and then hung on display. In her absence, the earth loses its fertility, crops cease to grow, and animals stop reproducing. Unless something is done, all life on earth will end. Now, after she's been missing for 3 days, her assistant goes to other gods for help. Finally, one of them, Enki, creates 2 creatures who carry the plant of life and water of life down to the underworld, sprinkling them on Inanna and Dumuzi, resurrecting them, and giving them the power to return to the earth as the light of the sun for 6 months. After the 6 months are up, Dumuzi returns to the underworld, remaining there for another 6 months, and Inanna pursues him, prompting the water god to rescue them both. Thus were the cycles of winter death and spring life. Now, it's similar to a later story about Persephone, which is actually one of the oldest Greek myths that we know. She was the queen of the underworld, a powerful feminine archetype. Cycle of descent to the underworld and subsequent ascension to earth signifies the progression of seasons. You know, I'm in honor of the Greek myths and Purim. I'm enjoying Dionysus tonight. You're supposed to drink on Purim. And both of these stories, which kind of sound like the same story, right? They're both about resurrection and life. Reminds me of the great song from Damn Yankees, 6 months out of every year. When we met in 1938, it was November. When I said that I would be his mate, it was December. I reasoned he would be the greatest husband that a girl had ever found. That's what I reasoned. That's what I reasoned. Then April rolled around. 6 months out of every year, I might as well be made of stone. 6 months out of every year, when I'm with him, I'm alone. Now, the 2 myths were about the progression of the seasons and the inexorable cycles of life and death. The song was about the baseball season, similar, I suppose, in their own ways. So really, all 3 of these stories that we deal with at this time, Dumuzi the shepherd, Persephone, the queen of the underworld, and Easter, are stories of rebirth, of resurrection. Perhaps its next incarnation will be the rebirth of man in a unified sense of spiritual unity. And rebirth, of course, is what is celebrated by so many of the holy days. The upcoming Festival of Unleavened Bread is the annual rebirth of freedom, and of course, it has been superseded as the holiest day of the year by the high holy day of Yom Kippur, the other lot-casting day, the annual rebirth of our souls by the gift of atonement and forgiveness. Friends, just as Hanukkah and Christmas are the twin festivals of light, Passover and Easter are the twin festivals of freedom. Passover was the most important holy day in the Torah, the ultimate celebration of freedom. And Easter, with the Last Supper, which was, of course, the last Seder of Yeshua ben Miriam, and it is probably the most famous Seder in history, by the way, and the painting of it in Milan is pretty incredible. But strip away the dogma, and you have 2 celebrations of freedom, one from fear and one from sin. But we'll speak about them later. This week we have Tzav, command, and it's a continuation of last week. You see, last week we had a list of sacrifices that needed to be made in different circumstances. And it can be a little bit much, and it can make your head swim. Keeping them all separate, how do you know which is which? It's an easy place to actually start losing people. Going to the priest was like us going to the doctor. The priest evaluated the situation and prescribed treatment. And you'll see that later on when we read more about it. Because ancient man understood the tight connection between spirit, soul, and body. So make 2 sin offerings and a guilt offering and call me in the morning. Now, there have not been sacrifices in this religion since Second Temple times. And so accordingly, there have not been any sacrifices in Christianity or Islam either. So is it any wonder that so many people lose interest here at the halfway point of the Torah? No. So what will such a large part of the Western religious world get from this book of rules? Mostly to do with sacrifices. Well, not much if you stick to just trying to understand the individual sacrifice or ritual. And that is why, where possible, I will focus on other possible meanings or ideas to get from this part of the Bible. You have to begin to wonder, friends, who wrote this and why it doesn't fit. Now this week we get to go over the 5 types of sacrifice we were introduced to last week. Only this time, we also get to hear instructions to the priest that goes along with them, as well as being told that each sacrifice has a lesson to teach. Now that's a very interesting way to look at things, although those lessons are actually only hinted at when you read it. Leviticus repeatedly introduces a particular set of regulations with the phrase, "This is the teaching," or "These are the lessons." And of course, the word for teaching is Torah. Teaching is in fact the primary meaning of Torah, and this translation preserves that sense throughout, though in these contexts, procedure, ritual, regulation, and similar terms are all acceptable. This, my friends, is primarily a book of instructions, and that's what we're reading about. And one of its Hebrew names, Torah Kohanim, could aptly be translated as priestly instructions. Don't forget, we refer to the Torah as these books together, but to ancient man, Torah simply meant the teaching. Okay? And you'll continue to see a phrase throughout this, and the phrase is, "It is holy of holies." Now, as elsewhere, this structure is a way of indicating a superlative in biblical idiom, the sense being supremely holy, supremely sacrosanct. You know, it's about any item, and the Holy of Holies makes it the holiest. And every time you read it, you could almost feel that it was holier than anything else around it. I got a feeling deep inside. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Now what we have here is actually beautifully summed up in Leviticus 7:37. This is the lesson of the burnt offering, the grain offering, of the sin offering, the guilt offering, and of the ordination and of the peace offering sacrifice. I mean, this concludes 7 chapters of laws about sacrifices. Now, because it's been nearly 2 millennia since the temple sacrifices ended, what can substitute for sacrifice is something that can give people some of the things that sacrifices provided. Feeling of fulfillment, closeness to God, sacredness of life, perhaps a link to Israel's history, perhaps charity. Perhaps it's all of those things. But we also have other acts of atonement, such as fasting, forgiving, asking forgiveness. All of this may be true, but people had prayer and charity and atonement in biblical times also. So these are not replacements for sacrifice. They existed beside sacrifice all along. So what do we have now that they did not have? How do we find meaning in these readings during this time? Well, perhaps the answer is study. What we have that no one in the biblical world before Ezra had is the Torah. What we have that no one at all in biblical times had is the full Tanakh. Our task is to study it, to shine our own new light on it, and to shine its light on us. This is our task individually, in groups, and as a community. But we are getting ahead of ourselves. The world is sacred, my friends, and so is everything in it. Express your gratitude. Light a candle, make a wish. Celebrate your life and the lives of those you love. Share your feelings with them. Live free, be free, honor your freedom. Be well, be happy, be blessed. Share and honor the light and all who live in the light and continue to shine. Continue to send everybody you know goodwill and love. Pray for peace and freedom for everyone, and end to terror and hatred. Remember, friends, we are a community. We learn together. We celebrate each other. We love each other. We share this ride together, men and women equally. Let us send out love, not fear. Send out peace, harmony, good healing to all who need it. Sherry needs it. Hannah needs it. Please do. Learn to forgive. Learn to love. Open your hearts. Honor the relationships of your life. Tell those you love that you love them. Take advantage of the time that you have. And remember, the journey is yours to enjoy. We take the twists and turns and the patterns that weave through the fabric of our lives in our effort to grow, to learn to be to love. So please do love. Share the light with all who live in the light and all who need the light. And remember, we have just had a holiday that tells us to overcome fear and take a chance on destiny. And next we have the Twin Festivals of Freedom coming up. So remember, love is all there is. It makes the world go round. Love and only love. It can't be denied. No matter what you think about it, you just won't be able to do without it. Take a tip from one who's tried. Now bless you all. Have a fantastic week, a week of love and light and peace and healing. And thanks. And send your goodwill to those who need it. Let's help Hannah. Let's help, Sherry to heal. They need our prayers. And keep on dreaming, my friends. Keep being, keep teaching, keep sharing, keep shining, keep spreading your holiness. And thank you all for joining me. And before we leave, I just want to end with a couple of bars from a Purim song called the Purim Game. Purim is a holiday for people old and young. We're gonna play a game together. Now let's have some fun. Guess what I am? Guess what I am? Tell me if you can. I'll give you hints so you can guess which Purim thing I am. I have 3 corners and my middle's filled with fruit or jam. I am a Purim cookie, yes. Haman Cheyenne. Haman's name is read aloud in all the girls and boys. Anyhow, friends, thank you for joining me. Have a fantastic week. I look forward to seeing you again next week. Take care. Shabbat Shalom. Goodbye.